Also with us, Jonathan Capehart, Washington Post editorial writer. Representative Camp, where's the North Star for you? In other words, when you convene a job summit, and I know you'll say we want to create jobs, but on the how question, where do you want to begin your how debate on resurrecting employment in America?
Well, Dylan, I think first we need to acknowledge that we're still hemorrhaging jobs. 170,000 in November, which is higher than was expected. I think we need to look at a couple of things. First, I would say no more new regulations unless it's directly related to health and safety. No more tax increases until unemployment's below 5%. And let's enact some trade agreements like Colombia and Panama. That would create at least 250,000 jobs right there. I think one of the things you're seeing is that business men and women are not hiring because they don't know what they're going to face on climate change, they don't know what they're going to face on taxes, they don't know what they're going to face in terms of healthcare costs, and because of that, they're frozen. They're not able to move forward because they can't estimate what their responsibilities are going to be over the next 6 months. So I would bring some certainty.
I agree with you. Can I add something to that?
Yes.
That if you look at the drop-off in small business lending, the banks also will not lend because they're fearful of the uncertainty that you described, and there's lots of other variables to that. And quite honestly, the rules are set up for the banks right now, so it is far more profitable for them to take the free money from the U.S. taxpayers and buy treasuries with it, capture that spread, than to lend money to American businesses or to speculate it elsewhere. So if you add your list and my list, how do you fix it?
It's both sides of that. Well, I think we do need to try to get something so that the community lenders and community banks have some ability to get financing to folks. And what I'm hearing from businesses is they can't get the money to even continue existing operations in some cases.
But as long as the government makes it such that banks are incentivized not to lend. In other words, if you and I started a bank and we were getting free money from the government and you and I wanted to get rich, it would be much easier for you and I to get rich not lending than lending. Right. And that's the government's job, ultimately.
It's both.
To
and
enforce
it's the lending
rules
side.
In other words, but how, if capitalism is based on innovation on the one half and the enterprise, anybody who does anything that's not banking, right? And then banking on the other half, which is given special rules, special structure, free access to capital. And the reason for that is because they are the custodian of everybody else's money. That's not their money. Your money's your money, my money's my money. If everybody's watching, that's their money. But for the bank, not their money, which is why we give them special rules to facilitate growth in our economy. So when the government abdicates those rules for the banks, so the banks are like, hey, I don't have to bother, because you know what, lending doesn't make me that much money anymore, because technology's made it low margin.
And if I might just say, I think clearly the lending side is a big part of it, but what you're having is businesses and employers not even wanting to move forward because they don't know what costs are going to face. So we've got to get these other issues under control as well. I think the taxes and the regulation, as I mentioned, and the trade, and I think the administration even has acknowledged the trade issue would create jobs immediately. I would say also on the spending side, we should freeze federal spending, understanding that we may have some shovel-ready infrastructure projects we need to do, and obviously we need to support our troops. But other than that, I would advocate a freeze on federal spending. And I think if you can do all of those things and move forward on that, I think we could actually try to see those employment numbers move ahead.
What would you draw as the biggest distinction between your view on creating jobs in America and what you perceive to be the Democrats' view? Where's the greatest point of differentiation?
Well, I think stimulus one didn't work because it wasn't really directed at the kind of activities that would be job creating. Much of it was lent to state governments to fill their budget holes. I think stimulus two, which they're talking about, we haven't really seen many details on, is a real concern that it may just further increase the national debt, which will not help us recover, and in the long term we're going to continue to borrow, and I think that's not a good scenario for our country.
Understood. Representative Camp, I hope to continue this conversation with you.
Thanks a lot, Dylan.
Yeah, thank you for indulging my bank narrative, and we got long lists on both sides of the room around here, as far as I can tell. Thank you. Plugging in with Contessa after the break here. Plenty more.